see it's getting darker and darker, and there's just no way right now for these drivers to know exactly what's going to happen.
These guys are going to have to be really, really careful and tiptoe around the track until it's either not even 10 minutes into this race, and I feel like we've got enough strategy going on for a whole event, but still a long, long way to go.
There's Yellowstone, there's Yosemite, but for racing fans and for Grid Life's Elkhart Classic, the destination is Road America, the National Park of Speed. Three wide in the front of the field here. Look at Emil Tab up the inside for the race leaders. We head down to the first corner.
And these guys have no idea what they're coming into. Look at this field. They're 2 wide, 3 wide, a couple places slipping.
Side by side for the race lead, 54, 48 through 3 and 4, working lap number 60, 110 laps to go. Yusuf Ghali, power move to the bottom of the racetrack, making the short way work. They're going to touch down the hill.
This will be a great run for Fuller here.
Yes, if we go right off the track in the final quarter, that'll allow Fuller to get a massive.
Here he comes.
Is he able to work?
Oh, big block here by Sanfilippo. Into the grass goes Ben Fuller toward turn 1, and Sanfilippo hangs on. He's loose. No! And he crashes hard in the exit of turn number 2. Don't try him here, boys. They're going to do it. Gritsko backs out. They touch. They're going to crash. Gritsko going to slam the attenuator hard into the wall. And Sarah Tesson hits him as well. And big damage on these cars. That's a huge
Number 4, people are struggling for grip, going out of every single lane, even trying to make runs. It's getting really insane.
Powered by AWS for the Intercontinental GT Challenge, powered by Pirelli at the Indianapolis 8-hour. We are 7 hours and 18 minutes into this 8-hour event.
John Miller way deep on the brakes to the inside of turn number 1 and 2. The spin, the 3 car gets turned around in front of 4.
James Houghton looking for a place to go, but he's got Austin Cobb to the inside. Bit of a gap behind. I think that's about 15th or 16th spot as they come out of turn 3. Big slide for this.
Getting a run. He's got it. Going to be a drag racing line. Final corner. Checkered flag waving. Here they come. At Virginia National Raceway. To the line. Thompson, Darling, door to door. Banging doors. Fender to fender. I can't believe what we just saw.
The Washington, D.C. region SCCA has 3 rounds remaining in its 2020 fall season. Next week, we'll head to Monza and then Summit Point, a home race for the D.C. region SCCA to finish out the season. But tonight, we're going to take a trip all the way to Suzuka, Japan for our next event in the championship. Welcome to Sim TV. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined tonight by Tom O'Gorman for the next round of the D.C. region SCCA Virtual Racing League. TCRs and GT4s, a bit of a smaller field tonight, Tom, but that never means the racing's going to be any worse. It's going to be a whole lot of fun tonight. TCRs and GT4s going at it at this long, twisty Japanese racetrack.
Yeah, good to be with you, Kyle. Both here on the stream, but also physically sitting right with you. Back again here on Sim TV, and we're starting into TCR qualifying. And I really think the Washington, D.C. region SCCA Virtual Racing League this winter 2020 season has been some of the most awesome racing. We've seen a lot of different types of races, but all of them equally competitive, equally exciting. As you mentioned, a little smaller fields tonight. Maybe a little bit of fatigue after the holiday week setting in, but we're deep into this 9-round season. This is round 7, and we've got a slew of kind of unfamiliar tracks, this one definitely being one. Even last week when Finney and I talked to one of the drivers, he hadn't even purchased the track yet in the iRacing service, so I think there's a big learning curve this week for Suzuka.
So this is a really challenging racetrack, as we know. There's a lot of corners here, 17 to be exact, and Elias Roman in this 99, he has been pretty much one of the top drivers in this TCR category, no matter what series he's running in. And tonight, I think he's probably going to be the one to beat. But Jack Christie in the 16 won't be too far off pace. Peter Lausen is here again in the 56 car. So a 5-car TCR field, you might look at that and say, oh, they're not going to be super competitive. Oh, no. I think they'll be more competitive with less to just kind of mess up the battle for the race lead. It's going to be very, very exciting as the drivers put down their first laps of the session.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was Chrissy actually was on pole last week at Olton Park. Elias Roman took the win eventually over David Alessi. Got the wrong standings in front of me, but either way, Chrissy was on pole last week, so he's found a lot of pace in this TCR Audi. But a little late in the season, see he's following Elias Roman by about a corner back, so he's got a little bit of a rabbit to chase on this first flyer, and I really think they get about 12.5 minutes. Probably looking at lap 2 or 3 is going to be the sweet spot for these TCR cars around what is actually it's a really long lap. It's a variety of corners, but it's just a long place.
It is a long place. And you mentioned the variety of corners. There's a lot of high-speed sweeping sections here, but there's also bunch of tight hairpins. Now, those are conducive to passing opportunities for these drivers, but the anti-lock brakes on these cars mean that you really don't have to use that much brake time. You get in there, kind of tap the brakes, and then let the car kind of rotate through, then you're right back on throttle. So you're not spending a whole lot of time on those brakes. This is a very fast racetrack for the TCRs, and we'll see with the GT4s later. They're going to have to slow down a little bit more, but they've got a larger field, so they're going to get pretty racy, especially mid-pack tonight.
Yeah, the GT4s, I think a lot of drivers found that they're a little cumbersome here around Suzuka. They're kind of in an awkward spot between not having a lot of downforce but do have quite a bit of pace. And downforce really helps you here at Suzuka, which the TCR cars have much more of. You look at the wings, the wide body kits, all of that really plays more into the way you make speed at Suzuka. The GT4 cars being a little more street inspired, a little less modified as a race car. They're kind of in a weird spot here at Suzuka, which is going to make them tough to drive. We've seen a lot of mistakes, a lot of drivers just kind of scratching their heads. But we'll get to that when we get them on track for qualifying. We are, five or so minutes into the TCR qualifying, deep into what will be the second flyer. Lap 3 total.
Have a look at our weather information here. I want to have a look at what the racetrack is doing. 74 in the air, 81 on the racetrack, low humidity, bit of a wind here out of the northeast. Now, how you've had experience driving these cars in the real world, Tom. How much does the wind affect these cars, if at all? Is it noticeable with these cars? I mean, I know they're not super heavy, so I'd imagine that they get blown around quite a bit if the wind is strong.
Yeah, it's not so much the wind, but the draft. Now, that's a different conversation. We've seen that come into play. There's some long straightaways here at Suzuka, so tailwind is one thing, headwind is one thing, but the draft either way is absolutely a big help as the 77 goes for a big slide. Still not quite up to temperature for those rear tires in the tightest hairpin down here in Suzuka.
And warming up the rear tires is a discussion we have pretty much every race about these cars. The front tires are doing a whole lot of work. They're easy to get warmed up, but those rear tires are just basically along for the ride. So with the long pace lap that we're going to have, what do you have to do in the opening segment to get those tires warmed up so that you can attack right away? Because you see Willemin go for a big slide. With the long, fast corners that we see, you're going to kill a lot of momentum doing that.
For me, I think the TCR cars, as usual for our standard DC region race here, we're running 40 minutes, and 40 minutes is long enough that you don't really need to be too aggressive on warming the tires up. The key more is long distance pace. So I might do a little bit of warming up of the front tire just to make sure that I have some grip when I go to the brakes for turn 1. But in general, I'm not as focused on being fast out of the gate as you would be with a proper sprint race format of a 10-15 minute race. These guys got to play the long game just a little bit. There's Lausen, who is sitting second, about half a second back from Elias Roman, but look at Lausen and Chrissy separated by less than a tenth.
Yeah, second and third are really tight right now. 0.104 seconds between those drivers. Willemin and Robbins each separated by a half a second, and Scott Merker still working up to pace right now in that number 77. But Elias Roman half a second up the road from Peter Lausen. Is anybody going to take the fight to Elias tonight, or is this his race to lose?
I think if Lausen or Chrissy is able to get a good start on this one and then maybe lead into turn 1, maybe control the pace of this race, that's certainly been where Elias Roman ends up on his heels, especially earlier this season when we were seeing Robert Cusera come out. If anybody applied that pressure, Roman was nice and consistent, but he wasn't dominant on pace necessarily if that was there. If you let him get away, then he tends to not really come back. He is just really nice and consistent, so that's why I do think they're going to have to get in front of him early if there is truly a half a second spread on raw lap time. They're going to have to offset that lap time by basically being in the way.
Across the line again for Elias Roman. Oh, Jack Chrissy goes faster by 0.04 of a second, a 2:14.720 to Roman's 2:14.724. So just like that, the whole storyline changes.
That would make 2 poles in a row, I believe, for this 16 car, so that's a good performance. Jack Chrissy's really in his stride. Had a really poor run on the long run last week at Oulton Park. I think he ended up off the track a couple of times, clawed his way back towards the podium in the end, but it wasn't the smoothest run, that's for sure, and he's going to be looking for a smoother one tonight. But that pole by 0.04 of a second, we said it earlier, it may not be a big field, but it's going to be a tight one.
So these guys should be able to finish up this lap. I think Elias Roman will get one more. So should the 16 of Jack Chrissy. Not sure if the others will be able to complete their laps. We've got the GT4 cars already getting lined up or getting ready to line up on the pit lane to go for their qualifying effort. The one thing that's great about this racetrack for multi-class racing, Tom, it's narrow, it's tight and hard to pass, but it is a big place. so everyone can get spread out quite a bit. It's not going to be like what we're going to see at Summit Point, where if you get 40 cars on that racetrack, you're elbow to elbow with somebody for the entire race. Tonight, they're going to get some chance just to breathe and race the racetrack, especially in the GT4 category once things get rolling.
Well, isn't that something to look forward to? Because I think for the series finale at the home track for the DC region back at Summit Point, we got a 2.2 hour race, and I would not be surprised in the least to see 40 cars on the grid for that one. We don't quite have that here. John Willeman's still looking a little uncertain on the back end of that Audi as he goes for a rotation on the way in and then a big flat slide from the front end, trying to get through that really tricky decreasing radius turns 1 and 2. But you're absolutely right. We have a long track here. It's one of those that kind of feels like it's going somewhere all the time. Look at him hand over hand on the wheel, just trying to get that front wheel drive car to turn. And unfortunately, if you're already at that point in the corner, it's not going to do it. Physics are working against you.
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, it seems like if you've got that much wheel in this car, you're just going to let those left front and right front tires push along the surface. They're not really going to get grip. This car, in my opinion, the way it's always raced is you use as little steering input as possible and sort of steer with the brake pedal just a little bit. So Willeman struggling right now. He's kind of chucking it off in the corner, and it just doesn't seem to be responding to that sort of input.
Yeah, you really have to kind of baby the front tires, put your kid gloves on a bit, and make sure that you don't ever snap that grip. And that's where you say you use a little bit less steering lock than you might think. You use a little bit more finesse on the way into the corner with the brakes and try to keep those front tires minimized on the job that they have to do. Looking back at the standings, it looks like Chrissy and Roman both went a little quicker again, but they're still separated by 0.02 this time. So they got faster and closer, and Lausen jumps into the 14s as well with that 14.9.
I love it. They both tried to one-up each other and ended up only making the gap closer. So 0.02 of a second is the differential between our pole sitter and our outside pole sitter in Elias Roman as the GT4s line up. And I'm looking at this, and it is not very diverse on the pit lane here, Tom. A whole lot of those Porsche Caymans. I know that there is a BMW M4 GT4, and actually I think there's 2 of them at least. Lapras is in one. I think who's the other one? David Thompson? No.
Yeah, the 15 car of, was it Leighton?
No. Oh, he is. There's 3 of them. Okay, so there's a few of them out there. It's actually more evenly split than I thought. I just saw Caymans lining up, and then I see all the M4s behind him. So that's interesting. Car choice has been a discussion a lot this season here, Tom. Maybe they found that this track is not particular to either one.
Well, I think that not quite be the case. There was quite a bit of discussion. I actually got in on one of the practice sessions, got to play around with these guys and kind of feel it out. I picked the BMW just to see what would happen because I know the Cayman was seeming to be the preferred choice. And just to kind of pull the curtain back on the iRacing bit here, there is a service that offers data review and offers setups, and you can kind of pull from those setups if you're a member of that service. And a lot of these drivers tend to kind of reference that as a what's possible, just to make an educated guess on which car they want to drive and put the effort into. And in that service, it looked like the BMW was going to be a really strong contender. And then you look deeper into the lap, and it's basically a Hail Mary lap. And it's in there as a, holy cow, who's ever going to be able to repeat that? All the drivers who tried the BMW, for the most part, ended up going, I can't do that, and they switched back to the Porsche. So the Porsche is certainly the preferred car to at least get the lap time easily, but I do think the pace is there in the BMW. Looking back at the practice results, that 15 car of Tom Leighton was 3rd quickest, so I don't think it's going to be an all-Porsche show, but it looks like the nod is definitely going to the Porsche as far as numbers go.
Thomas Leighton in that number 15 is in one of those M4s, looking the fastest of them in practice. Ken Ausil running the Cayman again this week. Chris Spiller in the 980. He is in a very brightly colored kind of tangerine and baby blue 980 M4. That's a good looking car, nice and clean. Kevin Zhu in the 243 is in the shockingly green and purple Cayman. I worked on a smoothie truck in high school, and it looked a whole lot like this.
Well, maybe it was also inspired by a 1970s Can-Am Porsche, but that car, a cool throwback, psychedelic 70s. Kevin Zhu always with the nice and confusing giant number 3 on the side, even though he's never number 3.
I was going to say that maybe I should clarify that the smoothie truck looked like this in livery, not in body shape. It was not a Porsche Cayman, I can promise you that.
But that would be the coolest truck ever. No one would ever be able to catch it for ice cream.
Do you remember the, I'm not sure if you watched a whole lot of NASCARs, you see, I think that's up the road. LaRoe is almost going off track. There he goes for a spin on cold tires. If you remember back in 2007, 2008, UPS had a big promo with Dale Jarrett back when he ran the UPS car. They put NASCAR slicks on one of those UPS trucks, and that was a whole thing. You could buy a die-cast of it and everything.
I don't remember that specifically, but I do remember the ridiculous commercial of Jeff Gordon running at the Pepsi truck and jumping through the window.
Oh, man, the 2000s were a better time. They were a better time.
I don't know.
There's LaRose. He just went for a spin. Is that a concern? I mean, when we go for a spin on cold tires, Tom, do you have to kind of reset to clear those tires of any damage or wear, or are they good to go just after one little loop?
No, it's usually pretty harmless. The bigger thing is just demonstrating how hard these cars are to keep a handle on with cold tires. And think of the consequences of that on the first lap. It's not consequence-free there. Here in qualifying, starting his first flyer just now, that's a pretty harmless mistake to make, and it looks like he's got a good gap up to the next cars to make sure that he can still get a flyer in. There's another driver going for a ride. That might have been Lapras off the track just a little bit.
No, Lapras is in a M4 this week. It's a driver running a similar paint scheme. It's not Francois Brou. He is accounted for. No, it's not Andrew Chow. A lot of drivers in here that are familiar names, but I feel like the liveries have changed. I've been out for a couple weeks. There goes a car wide through turn 1. Been gone for a couple weeks, and it seems like everyone's changed their look.
We needed Finian to do flashcards with you.
Yes.
Hold the livery up. Who is this?
Well, this is Rich DeMarco. He's just had a spin through turn number 1. I'd like to get a good look at what that looks like here, Tom. It's so easy for cars to step out through this section because you're carrying so much speed, just gets it a little bit wrong.
Yeah, and if you kiss that outside curb, it is paved and grippy enough, but if you catch it in the ridge between the track and the curb, it'll send you for a spin big time, not only here, but also in 130R, which is the fastest left-hander off the longest back straightaway. There's a good look at the entry. If you run wide in just the wrong way, and it's a couple of inches of margin, but if you catch that curb, it will snap the car faster than you can blink. So there's a couple of really tricky spots on this track that you have to be careful of. There was something else I wanted to point out. While we have a moment in qualifying, I'm going to hit your director screen, or your director talent. On the front straightaway, this is something I never really realized. Look at the pit garages. The signs and the garages are level. But that is how downhill this front straightaway is, and that's never really something that stands out to you in camera. But the downhill into this first couple of corners adds a significant amount of momentum. There's a good look at it. There's so much more grade on this front straightaway than you think, and that is part of the reason why it's so hard to get the car slowed down to that decreasing radius turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, actually, if you can probably draw on this and show you. So there is basically the slope of the pits, and then the racetrack essentially follows it down. So that gives you a pretty decent idea of how stepped that is. That's a pretty good observation there, Tom. So carrying a lot more speed into turn 1 than you might otherwise think. First driver across the line, DJ Alessandrini, a 2:11.257, 3.5 seconds quicker than our TCR field. On the first lap out, they're only going to get quicker. LaRose goes second. Canal Seal bests Alessandrini by 2.5 tenths of a second. He goes to the top with a 2:11 flat. And Andrew Kessel in the number 5 comes through with a 2:12.478 on our first lap out.
Noticing a lot of drivers not having a lap time in the books at all, and that to me tells me it's really tough to get a clean lap around Suzuka. When we talk about clean, that means you're keeping the car within the track limits of iRacing. If you dip a tire, as always with this DC region, they run an incident limit of 25, and that's in the races, but in qualifying you must be clean. So if you do what Rich is about to do here, he goes off track, that is a dirty lap. No matter how good or bad this lap is, it will not count on board.
And that's always frustrating because some drivers will consider the AstroTurf to be racetrack, but that sort of depends on what track you're at here in iRacing, but it's decided that the turf here is off limits. Anything that's painted concrete is generally okay. So DeMarco will have to go around again and give this another go. He's only got 6 minutes left to get a time in. David Thompson has yet to put a lap time in, and so has about half the rest of the field. Chad Griffith jumps into the session. He has yet to appear on the racetrack at all tonight, so he'll have to get a lap in here in the next 5.5 minutes.
Noticing in the GT4 field, I don't think any of the BMWs got a clean first lap. Maybe the 980, that orange and blue car that we were looking at a little earlier, I think he's the only BMW on the board right now, so those cars might be a little bit more bull in the China shop, as we referenced earlier.
Yeah, and it's always interesting because I would have thought that the M4 makes tire temp faster than the Cayman, but maybe that's not the case, or maybe there's something else at play. Maybe they get better over the course of the run, but I've always seen the M4s kind of wear out tires faster as well, so I'm not really sure how those two things correlate and correspond in a qualifying session.
Yeah, they do tend to be quicker earlier on, and of course there may be nothing to that. I just was looking down the board and thinking those are all Cayman drivers who have times up there, which means more pressure for the BMW drivers because not only are their cars going to start to fall away, as we see the 980 already going for a slide 3 laps into his stint here qualifying, but you're running less than 5 minutes to go now, so the pressure to get a clean lap is on. You're probably looking at maybe best case 2 more laps.
So into 130R, this is that fast left-hander. There's a car off in front of, I think, looks like that might be Hessel, perhaps, that is pulled off to driver's right. And into Casio, do they call it the Casio Triangle? Is that what that's called down there?
I don't know.
Infiniti usually labels the cameras by their corner name. He just has this listed as the chicane, so maybe it doesn't have it. Alex LaRose jumps into second, splits Hausil and Alessandrini in the number 26 Porsche Cayman. But notably, it's all, the top three are all Caymans. Christopher Lapras in fourth in that number 6 M4 GT4. He is 7/10 off of the pole sitter right now, Ken Hausil.
And they'll go faster that lap, knocking on the door of the 209s, which is really, really fast. So I think the track conditions are pretty good. Look at how Seal chucking the Porsche over that curb, which is a really, really hard landing. And that's one of those spots where it's really easy to get an off track. He keeps it perfectly within the track limits. But if he were to track out one more ridge, watch him go for a leap, lands it nicely. But if you get a bad bounce, that's going to be bad news in the race. Chris Lapras also has a strategy in qualifying figured out here. We've seen him reset mid-qualifying run and go back out on fresher tires in that BMW. Looks like he completed the lap, got that 210.7 in, and immediately resets to go for one more flyer on fresher tires.
Probably only going to get one more, as you mentioned, so he'll have to make it count. Oh, real understeery there. That's probably going to be the condition we're going to see these cars in. We've seen them, the M4s, struggle to get pace here in the opening lap, and every time we come to one of these Japanese racetracks, I don't know if this is true, Tom. I've always heard that the Japanese actually use crushed seashells in their aggregate for their pavement, and it really changes the grip level. It makes Japanese racetracks a lot slicker than their European or American counterparts. I wonder if there's something to that makes this racetrack different for the M4 versus the Cayman, where typically you'd see the M4 faster, quicker.
Interesting. I had not actually heard that, but I can tell you that there are certain tracks that absolutely just are lower grip surfaces. If you look at, compare Watkins Glen and Laguna Seca, if you want to talk U.S. tracks, Watkins Glen is notably the grippiest track in the U.S., and everybody who's been there will tell you it's the grippiest surface that they've ever been on. Then you go to Laguna Seca, if you're racing in Pro Series, often back-to-back sometimes, Laguna Seca is notoriously low grip. It is comedically low grip. The surface is just not very good there, which makes it, it's the same surface for everybody. It makes it a really interesting challenge. But some of these tracks just have that personality to them.
Also covered in dust out there probably doesn't help either.
Yeah.
And the fresh repave at the Glen also probably contributing to the high grip. Was it high grip? Did you ever race on it before it was repaved?
I did not.
Okay, I wonder if it was different before. That's always an interesting discussion. Kevin Zhu, David Thompson, Chad Griffith still have yet to put in their lap times here. The 22 comes across the line. Will this be an official time? Looks like it will not be, so this will be a start of a flyer, and he'll get one before session ticks on over. Kevin Zhu in the 243, he is coming out of the final corner across the line, and see if he goes any quicker. And a 212.111 puts him 9th best. We might get one more go here with the lap time still, or the time still ticking down. As soon as the checkered falls, the end of the session will happen.
Typically that 22 car is driven by Jonathan White. Looks like he's absent today, and just happened to have a 22 out here again, being driven by a different driver. But the top 4 in the GT4 Championship are all present. DJ Alessandrini leads the way by a long margin over Ken Hausil, who finally broke through, got his first win last week. Chris Lapras sits 3rd in the championship, and then Alex LaRose sits 4th. All those drivers are again here tonight, so I think really the tight battle is between Lapras and LaRose for the final spot on the podium championship-wise, and we're deep into the
Oh, that's a bad spot to go off. Gravel. And it'll just keep the 26 off of the foam blocks on the far side of the track. That's a very sketchy place to dip a wheel off.
Yeah.
I'll bet you he doesn't make that mistake again. Also, I wanted to note, if we look, this is a little bit off in the distance, but you see at the exit of 130R, a lot of drivers have been actually dragging a lot of dirt and debris back on course. And while that typically doesn't have an enormous effect here in iRacing, it does accumulate, and it does start to have a cumulative effect. If a lot of people drag the dirt back on, so I guess that's something to keep our eye on as well.
And that's the spot I was talking about. If you catch that curb in just the right way, or I would say just the wrong way, it'll send you for a really, really rowdy ride. Not quite the way we saw LaRose do it. He did it on the entry, but that's a really tough corner to get right, and you have a long straightaway to think about all of the possible outcomes coming into it.
So LaRose works his way around. Qualifying is complete. Drivers will be able to finish their laps, but it looks like, unless something drastic happens, Ken Hausil will be your pole sitter in GT4. Jack Chrissy will be your pole sitter in TCR. Elias Roman sharing the front row with him. And as of now, LaRose sharing the front row with Ken Alceel, last week's winner from Oulton Park. Now, that was a pretty tight and twisty racetrack. This one is a lot longer and a lot more, I wouldn't call it twisty, I'd call it windy. Lots of fast, high downforce corners versus the short kind of point and shoot that Oulton Park was last week. So very different in terms of the track layout, which is always exciting to go from two extremes.
Sure, and it does present some more traditional braking zones, some more traditional passing zones, but also just more space to work. If you look at how many car widths wide, you could probably get away with 4 car widths, 4 cars wide at the start, especially if you need to. But back at Oulton Park last week, it was barely 2 cars, and you're already uncomfortable going side by side. So I think we'll see a little more jockeying for position. You don't have to be quite so brave here, but stringing together consistent laps is really what drivers tend to struggle with here at Suzuka, because the lap is so long, so varied, and it's just really tough to be consistent for a total of 40 minutes here.
Now, tell me about the opening lap here on cold tires, traction control settings, especially for the GT4 cars, and specifically the Cayman, which seems to have pretty invasive traction and stability control. On that opening lap, how hard can you drive, especially on the curbing here? Are those settings that you want to turn off until the tires come up to 10?
No, I think you tend to run them, and you do have to be a little bit careful to just not let the car get away from you, because these cars don't have a lot of steering lock. If you get a little too sideways, even a driver aid's not going to save you. So you can see just how little steering wheel, even this deep into the run, the 29 of Chow is using to get through Spoon, now onto that long back straightaway. But I do think you pretty much underdrive that first lap just to make sure the car gets through that first lap. But what's tricky here at Suzuka, you have a really challenging downhill entry to turns 1 and 2, and then you have the S-curves, turns 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all linking together, and it's really tough to balance the transitions from going long sweeps and then transition the other way, long sweep, transition the other way on those cold tires. They just don't like it.
Well, you mentioned the transitions here, and this is one of those racetracks where if you mess up the entry to one corner, it's just going to kill you for the entire rest of the section. So it is absolutely crucial that you get through turns 2 and 3 efficiently and set yourself up, because it's just compromise one after the other. If you make a mistake on entry, it's going to carry to the exit and then mess you up for the whole next segment of corners. So you really have to string them together and be very precise, and I don't think you're going to see a lot of passing in this section, Tom. They'll mostly happen on the backside of the track.
No, but you will see drivers setting up for passes in this section, and you can kind of start that over-under 4 or 5 corners before you actually make them move. And that's where I'm talking about. You can get a little more creative here at Suzuka than last week at Oulton Park.
So no one was able to dethrone Ken Alceel at the top of the order, so he will start on pole with a 2:10.019. We'll roll down the rest of the order here for you in just a moment. But our 40-minute race about to get underway. Again, we've got 2 more races left in this season. Next week at Monza in Italy, and then back home for Summit Point to round out the rest of the season. So this race will be approximately 19 laps. That's not a whole lot of times around because of the length of this place. And for drivers that have a particular corner that's haunting them, less reps is probably better. And let's have a roll down through our starting lineup here, Tom. On the front row, Ken Alceel in the 23 and the 26 of Alex LaRose.
It's a good front row start for both of those drivers. DJ Alessandrini feeling a little uncomfortable with this track this week. He starts 3rd in the 61 alongside Tom Layton in the top BMW. That's the 15 car.
In row number 3, Christopher Lapras rolls off in 6th in one of those BMW M4s. Andrew Kessel starts 6th in the number 5 car.
And then it's Danny Gross back in the number 4, starts 7th alongside Francois Brou in the 69. They make up the 4th row.
In row number 5, Kevin Zhu in the number 243 starts alongside the number 22, Chad Griffith, who starts in 10th.
In the 11th spot, bringing up the inside of the 6th row, Andrew Chow alongside Rich DeMarco in a BMW in the 12 car.
In 13th place will be Chris Spiller in the number 980. And with that, Jack Chrissy will be the pole sitter in TCR, lined up next to Elias Roman in the number 99. Peter Lausen starts in 3rd place or in TCR with Will Robbins and John Willeman. Bringing up the rear of the field with Scott Merker being the caboose on the TCR train tonight. All right, pace lap about to get underway here. We missed Ryan Maloney. He didn't get a lap in qualifying, so he will start with the GT4 field. But actually, you know what? He's not even going to start the race. Neither will Don Manning. So those 2 drivers entered, but not going to compete this evening.
Look at this right now. Lots of burnouts on the Caymans. Turning off the traction control, getting the rear tires warm as they possibly can to try to stabilize the rear end of those cars, and then turning the traction control right back on. get towards that green flag.
Yeah, and actually, I thought we were going to have a full pace lap here. We're going to use the half pace lap, which significantly reduces the amount of time you have to warm up your stuff. So by the time we get to turn 1, 2 right-hand sweepers. A lot of first corners on racetracks are very tight. This one is wide open and high speed, so that's going to create a lot of challenges for drivers that are normally used to getting down and relying all mechanical grip. Now it's going to be mechanical and a little bit of aero they have to lean on. 40 minutes in the DC Region SCCA Virtual Racing League. Our third to last race of the season. Ken House-Seal on that blue Cayman 718 GT4 brings us to the green flag. We're waiting for it, still waiting, as we come to the green flag. Slow and steady, and there it is. Green flag flies. We're racing at Suzuka in the Washington, D.C. Region SCCA Virtual Racing League, fanning out 3 wide already. The 5 car, the meat and the sandwich as they head down to turn 1. Look at the 15. Drivers left 4 wide into the first corner.
Man, I said 4 wide in the lead up, but I didn't think it would actually happen. It's a great start from both drivers in the second row. Look at Alessandrini on the inside, Leighton around the outside, and the BMW on a charge goes up to second place coming into the S's this first time through. Ken House-Seal's got a little bit of a breakaway, and it's also a really good start for Christopher Lapras in the 6 BMW. He's up to 5th.
That was amazing. A great start for Leighton as they sweep through the S's. Now House-Seal's going to try to drive away very quickly. Meanwhile, the TCRs still haven't even started the race yet. They're still at pace speed right now at 80 miles an hour. And they're going to be in a position to get lapped here. Alessandrini putting pressure back on the 15 as they come through Dunlop and Degner.
Alessandrini's got him in his mind. He knows that if he gets stuck behind Thomas Leighton for too long, it's going to allow Ken House-Seal to start to get away. You get a little more confidence.
They did start. Sorry about that, Tom. The TCRs already did take the green flag. They snuck under my nose there because they were basically just rolling pace speed through the S's with the cold tires and the understeer. But they're through. No dramas there. Let's head back to GT4.
Yeah, looks nice and clean for those guys. Chrissy getting away ahead of Elias Roman. But what I was saying at the front is Alessandrini knows the longer it takes for him to get around Thomas Leighton, if Leighton's not quick enough to run down House-Seal, as that Porsche comes in, House-Seal's going to be able to start to drive away as Alessandrini tries to race with Leighton. But it honestly looks like Leighton's got a ton of confidence in the car this early on. He had started to close the gap just a little bit. There's Rich DeMarco and Francois Brou behind.
A couple battles going on a little bit deeper in the field. 4/10 between House-Seal and Leighton right now. I want to watch these guys through 130R because this is where these cars are on edge in the early moments. Tires not fully up to temp, and you need every bit of grip you can get through this section, relying on the little bit of aero and all the mechanical force. Look at Ken climbing the curbing. That's a brave thing to do on the opening lap. Leroux is a little bit wide. Here comes Lapras.
Just got the pressure on, braking nice and early for, I looked it up. It is the Casio Triangle, and it's a 3-car breakaway now. Looks like Leighton's able to close in on House-Seal just a bit, but Lapras keeps it equidistant to the back of Leroux, who's fallen 2 positions on this opening lap.
Not a great start for Leroux. I saw Alessandrini 2-wheeling it over the curbs. The car didn't want to set itself back down, so he managed to get it put there. Meanwhile, with the Lapras and LaRose into turn number 1. Notice the tail there. So are Andrew Kessel and Daniel Gross. Scott Merker in TCR. Oh, that's a big one for Merker. It's big damage. Let's see if we can find how he got that damage. He just got, the car was sideways, just kind of a tank slapper. This is going to hurt. Oh, that's a big hit.
Looks like the rear end floated as he tried to go for the brakes coming into Spoon. It got a little bit of an awkward tank slapper and floated the wrong way, which when you set these TCR cars up to handle well, the rear end really moves around quite a bit. You got to be on top of it because sometimes the weight transfer sends you in a way you didn't mean to go. And that looks like what happened here. So we're riding on the S's now, chasing the leader, Chrissy, along board on the hood of Elias Roman. And just how much throttle control they have to get these front-wheel drive TCR cars on these cooler front tires through on these opening laps.
About 5 car lengths between them, and Roman has been so good in these cars. He's got some real competition now. Jumps the right-hand curb there. Going to tuck it a little bit tighter. He saw the brakes kind of happen mid-corner for Chrissy. Is that sort of an indication of understeer that he's trying to get the car pointed mid-corner?
Yeah, certainly. Just a little too much speed on the way in, and it starts to flat slide, but look at the rear end floating around as they break down for the hairpin. And then back on the throttle. Have to be super patient. It's going to be really easy to blow the front tires off of these cars later in this race. So you got to baby them now while you can. And honestly, even at the expense of track position, because you have a lot of time. Here's Will Robbins, who's up a position over Peter Lausen onto the podium right now.
He's jumped up 1 spot to hang out in 3rd for now. Lausen has not gone away. Still 3/10 between the TCR race leaders. Back in 6th place, there's Kessel and Gross side by side. They're heading down towards 130R. They're going to have to get single filed out here. Gross backs out. He's going to run wide, though.
running really wide. There was a little bit of a slide, but he gathers it up, and now Kevin Zhu might have a look at him. 3 Caymans. Whoa, Rich DeMarco with a big tank slapper off of 130R, and Francois Brou goes through.
That was a great save, though. That was a crash, in my opinion, before.
Yeah.
That you don't save a car like that at 140 miles an hour. Halcyon leads this lap. Leighton now has a lot of pressure from Alessandrini. Can't even see the Porsche behind the BMW as they head into turn 1.
Yeah, totally obscured behind the greenhouse of that big boy. But rolling into lap 3, we're 5 minutes into the 40-minute feature here, and it's looking like this BMW is pretty strong. Look at that. He closes in another car length or 2 on the back of Ken Halcyon.
Yeah, he wasn't faster overall last lap around, but he gained a lot through turns 1 and 2. Now he's right there on the rear bumper of that blue Cayman as they sweep through the S's.
And I think this is go time, as we've talked about so many times. Pretty much every race this season, the BMW is strongest in the first third of these races. It's pretty okay through the middle third, and then back at the end, you know, thinking back to Ken Halcyon at Sebring, he just had nothing for Alessandrini, who was in the Porsche at that point. Now that race was a lot longer than this one, over twice the distance, but those BMWs, they got to get the job done early and then just kind of stay in the way. There's a lot more racecraft that goes on early on here with the BMWs.
Under the crossover, then heading to the backside of the track, and you see, well, the BMW is a little bit more aggressive looking right now. Can climb the curbs a lot more voraciously in these cars than you can in the Cayman. And that allows you to really make time in some of the tighter sections. But the Cayman is pretty nimble, and I think that's what it's got over the BMW, Tom, is the ability to change direction a lot more easily than the M4.
It is more nimble, but the margin for error is smaller. And I think, thinking back to qualifying, Ken Halcyon jumping those curbs, he may disagree that the BMW handles those curbs better, but or maybe he would fully agree, I don't know. But that Cayman, there's the other strength. It gets off the corner a little bit better with the mid-engine platform, a little bit less horsepower. But look at the run. Whoa, Leighton has a big draft up to the back. He lifts out of it just to make sure they're not going to go double file into 130R.
Through 130R, though, that's where Halcyon's really good. Now Alessandrini has a look driver's left. Can't really pass out there, but he's going to give it a try as they head into the Casio triangle. Can't complete it. Tucks back in line behind the 15.
Yeah, you're not going to make it work on the way in, but you might make it work on the way out. And Alessandrini's got just a little bit of a run. Unfortunately, the BMW is strong enough in a straight line that that run's going to go away. And you'll see, especially right at the very end of the straightaway, the BMW will pull about a car length on Alessandrini from here to the braking zone. Alessandrini, though, still trying to pressure Leighton into a mistake, hunting around in those mirrors.
Meanwhile, back in third place, Peter Lausen's gotten back by Will Robbins for third in TCR. The orange 56 car moves on through. Robbins tucks in behind. The race leader is still separated by about 3 or 4 car lengths, 0.3 of a second. And I have a hunch that this is going to be what this battle looks like for the rest of the race. See the other two behind him going a little defensive.
Oh yeah, it's been quiet for us so far on the broadcast, but this is awesome racing between these two. Chrissy floating a little more speed in, using up the front, misses the apex at 2. Roman nails it, gets the power down, and they're going to go side by side into the S's.
They're going to try, not really succeed. I saw Lausen sideways behind him. He's got Will Robbins right on that rear bumper, putting the pressure on. But you can't keep your eyes off these TCR cars, because 1 minute they'll be racing like this, the next time they'll be upside down in the tire barrier. So you gotta keep your eye on them. They sound awesome too. I love the turbo sounds, some whistly voice.
Little harken back to Group E rallying. It's one of the only places where you're still going to get some nice 4-bangers with turbos on them in professional racing. But look at Chrissy floating the back end still. That car looks pretty good for the long run, but he's using up the front a little more than I'd say is good, and that's one of these things with the front-wheel drive cars in general. They just don't recover quite so well. They don't have enough power and they don't have enough grip. So when you make a mistake, it's almost exacerbated more so than it would be in the Cayman or BMW, because those are just a more balanced platform fundamentally.
So 2 good battles happening in TCR. John Williman trying to run one of those battles down, unsuccessful thus far. And for the lead back in GT4, you see him on the other side of the racetrack. It's sort of fizzled for now, but I say fizzled, and Leighton seems to close in on the entry to 130R, 5 car lengths now.
Ooh, look at Alessandrini using all the track and more. Picks up a 1X on that one, and there's another car running wide. In the background, there was one of the white Porsches, maybe Danny Gross, rejoins aggressively, and he's still behind Andrew Kessel. Whoa, deep into the Casio triangle, and really behind there.
Let's have a look at what that looked like heading into 130R.
No, it was actually a TCR car ahead that goes off wide.
Oh, I think that was Merker went off the racetrack.
Sorry, Danny, didn't mean to call you out on going off.
I was kind of laughing about what we saw on Facebook the other day, where it was the Baby Yoda looking up at the pit lane official after going 4 tires off. Yeah. Naughty, naughty. Still 3 car lengths between these front two. Again, I don't think this battle's going anywhere, but we'll keep our eyes on the timing and scoring. In GT4, Alex LaRose is beginning to bring the party to the back of DJ Alessandrini's car, and I wouldn't also count out the 6-car of Lapras. He ran a really good time last time, better than Alessandrini, so might be a 5-car fight here shortly.
Yeah, and last week Lapras ran a really, really strong race. He was in the hunt all the way up until the very end. I think he kept that car in about 4th spot up until the end and got caught out in a little bit of an awkward incident with some lap traffic and ended up stuffing it. But he had a strong run last week, and the other driver that is always strong in the long run is LaRose. Somehow he always ends up a little further back off the starts than he qualifies, but then just runs a really strong pace. And I totally agree that this is likely going to turn into a 5-car battle at some point before we end up with this checkered flag.
David Thompson, the 51, came in. He's gone around right in front of the TCR leaders who have switched positions. This is why you can't take your eyes off them, Tom, because they're going to swap like that. And here is a look at how that happened. It was, I think Chrissy's going to run wide, just slipped through turn 2 there. That's where his weakness has been, and Roman snuck on through. Yeah, that's the same spot he made the mistake the lap before. So unfortunately, it looks like Chrissy did not learn from the mistake and is going to lose a position because of it. But this is the recovery we were talking about. See, he can add all the wheel he wants, but it's just not going to come back until they get the wheels straight. Elias Roman pulls through. He leads now by the same gap that Chrissy led at the line last time by, back up in GT4 with this 5-car train beginning to form through 130R. How Seal and Alessandrini, those Caymans, really excel at that corner, but you see DJ get hooked up on that curb. You don't want to tug the car off that, Tom. It's just going to force it into a spin. No, as soon as you feel that happening, you just go soft hands and let the car go where it needs to go, and Alessandrini is working his butt off in that 61 car. I don't know if it's actually helping him. He's all over the place a little bit. Looks like he's using a lot more energy than the other cars around him. But he was the first one coming into this race to say that he was just a little uncomfortable with this week's combination of cars, really torn between even which one to pick, and now just kind of finds himself stuck, really working hard for not much result. You know, third's great and all. He's leading the championship. As long as he finishes this one, he's all right. But Alessandrini always wants to be on the top. He's still third right now. I don't think bronze is going to do it for him, so not going to hit the what's the chemical? Is it serotonin, oxytocin, one of those ones?
I think serotonin. I don't know. I don't know anything about science.
I didn't do very well in biology. Meanwhile, up at the front, Roman and Chrissy in TCR still going at it. And see, Chrissy really struggles in these first 2 corners. The rest of the lap, I think he's better than Roman, but he might learn something here by following this 99 for a couple laps. I totally agree. Now that he's got that buffer, he can't really charge into turn 2 the way he had been, because it would put him into the bumper of the 99 that now leads the race. So he's got a natural kind of buffer to make sure that he doesn't make those mistakes, and I think if he can kind of calm down for a second, cool the front tires off a moment, because I saw him kicking dirt other places too. I think he was working the car just a little bit too hard to stay in front of Roman. There's another one, hopping curbs. He just needs to calm down, take a deep breath, stick to the back of Roman for a couple of laps, and then maybe mount an attack once he learns a couple of things. See Roman clobber that inside curb there with the right side tires, and see Chrissy largely staying off them on the right-handers, but he clobbered them on the left, so I'm not sure if he's missing apexes or learning that jumping those things isn't really conducive to a fast lap around here. Well, you're totally right about the mid-track being where Chrissy comes alive. Look, he's pulled back to the bumper after some mistakes early on in this lap. Looks like he's really good through a couple of these middle corners up to the hairpin. Now they kind of stabilize once again. Who wasn't stabilizing is the gap between second and third. Leighton and Alessandrini, they have been like an accordion, back and forth and back and forth. LaRose is a little tight through the Casio triangle and going to lose some ground there, but the second and third place car right on top of each other. Yeah, LaRose and Lapras too, both have dropped off of this one just a little bit. It looks like about 3 car lengths between Leighton and Alessandrini. Alessandrini's popping out, but it looks like he's kind of dropped off of his game plan of pressuring Leighton into a mistake. Look at Leighton, though. He's deep into turn 1. Does he make it? No, he dips 2 tires into the into the AstroTurf, and Hausil was also majorly sideways. I like graph. The grass turf. Yeah. Whoa, DJ puts the bumper to the 15. Oh, now he's getting impatient. Going to use a little bit of the chrome horn on that Porsche Cayman to knock the 15 out of the way, but it was an unsuccessful charge. And although DJ's got a pretty strong offense, Leighton's building up a pretty strong wall on defense right now. Yeah, and it was surprising to see how Seal have that slide. He's usually a pretty calm character when he's leading and controlling the pace of this race, but that car was awful crossed up. Especially by Ken's standards, between turns 1 and 2, and that's what brought these 2 right back to his bumper. Look at Leighton using all of the grass all the way out into the
extra pavement.
And DJ has been so racy. Whoa, look at LaRose chuck the car down there. He's going to use the bumper on DJ, and it is elbows out right now, Tom. They are roughing each other up out there.
They're coming up on halfway, 25 minutes to go in this 40-minute race, and that was a pretty big one between those two at the apex of the hairpin. Allison Drini had to go hand over hand to catch it, and they've lost maybe 10 car lengths up to the BMW, which still continues to put pressure on House-Seal. But Rose doing a good job to make sure that he doesn't capitalize on that mistake. I'm sure it was completely unintentional, just a little boop at the apex. And they gather it back up.
I was going to say, guys, it's not real IMSA, so you don't have to run into your opponent. Oh, man. Tom holds his tongue. Meanwhile, for TCR, Roman and Chrissy still scrapping. Roman still has the spot over that 16 car who is the pole sitter. They traded spots a few laps ago. Chrissy has not been able to respond, but he remains about 3/10 back. This is, like I said, can't pull the eyes off them because you're going to turn away. They'll be upside down or in space or somewhere between.
Well, this is a great rebound for Chrissy, and I think we kind of come to expect this from Elias Roman. He's really strong in the TCR car in multiple championships, and he seems to do really well with pressure, seems to do really well with managing his car. But, you know, there's only so fast you can go. It looks like Chrissy's figured out something to make sure that car can go really quick. Maybe he doesn't have the consistency down, which it takes a lot in the middle of a race like this to realize the pressure, take a deep breath, and rebound from it. Whoa. Looks like Lausen got scared for a moment on the car pitting out.
Scott Merker had something. He just drove off the track to the right, tried to slow down and couldn't, and got the Armco on driver's right. So good that he didn't get bounced back into traffic.
Will Robbins is keeping the pressure on Lausen too. So all of the podium positions, basically all the drivers in TCR are in this one still. As the 35 is within a couple of car lengths in the back.
Meanwhile, back in 6th in GT4, there's Andrew Kessel and Daniel Gross going at it. These two have been scrapping since the drop of the green flag. They're about to bring Kevin Zhu into the mix as they're going to try side by side through the S's. I'm not sure that that's going to work very well, so they're going to tuck back in line.
Smart move to check up on the brakes, but you can tell that the 5 is feeling the pressure. Kessel was really, really deep in there, and Danny Gross gets all the position back that he had lost on entry with that mounting attack. Kevin Zhu's loving to see these two getting racy. Whoa, Gross is really deep on the brakes, and Kessel gives him room, gentlemanly by both, but I don't think that was an intentional lunge from Danny Gross, and he surely tucks back in. And now look at the run that Zhu's got.
Yeah, Zhu's coming right now. Last time by, he was pretty much on pace, was actually faster than Kessel by 0.2 of a second, so it's going to be a three-horse race for 6th. Behind them, Brew, DeMarco, Griffith, Chow, and Spiller have sort of been in their own world so far. They have not really been able to tack onto these battles mid-pack. So this is what you're watching right now, this mid-pack battle in GT4. The lead is sort of calmed down, both in GT4 and in TCR, so we'll stay on this.
Porsches draft off of each other pretty well once you get into 5th and 6th gear, which is right where they are now. Nose dives, and they both chuck it into 130R. They're going to be really close to that groove. Holds on to it. Lots of dirt flying, just like you pointed out early. That part of the track's getting really messy.
Kevin Zhu in too deep into the Casio triangle. He'll kill some time there. And this is a corner that you sort of tend to overdrive quite a bit because as you exit 130R, you have to make a transition to get back to the driver's left side of the racetrack. As you come out of 130R, you have to get all the way back to the left to sweep into the Casio triangle. If you track out too much, then you end up kind of being offline and braking in a straight line here, Tom. It's a bad way to enter the corner, and it's just going to cost you time.
Yeah, I think you just drew exactly what line Kevin Zhu took on the way in there, and you make an excellent point. There's a lot going on in that section of track. And that's one of those spots where I mentioned really early in qualifying, these GT4 cars, holy cow, Zhu barely hangs on to that one. That was a huge curve hop in the 243, but these GT4 cars are fast enough that that section of track is pretty dramatic, but they don't have a lot of downforce to really make it comfortable either. So that's why I think these GT4 cars are so fascinating here at Suzuka.
They're getting all over the edges of the racetrack right now. Andrew Kessel popping the tires in the air, some grass flying. That brings Daniel Gross right to the rear bumper again. There's a big curb slam for the Gross car. Look at Kessel out wide. They're just getting after it here at Suzuka.
These two are pushing so hard, and it's awesome to watch. Now does Danny Gross try for this apex one more time? He swung out last time and was pretty deep on the brakes, but he goes for it again. That might have been an intentional move last time too, and Kessel gives him the apex once more, but knowing he can run the rim and then close the door with the run around the outside.
Can really carry a lot of speed on drivers right there, so it looks like Kessel has figured that out and is okay giving up the inside of that corner, knowing he's can compromise on corner exit. Back up in front though, look at this, 3-horse fight, still maybe 4. LaRose losing a little bit of touch, but Halcyon and Leighton still running out front. Now, Halcyon has led every lap that we've completed so far, but is he the fastest driver out there still, do you think?
I don't know. Like I said, he's usually a pretty calm character at the front, and I do think that there's one spot that's really saving him, and it's coming off the spoon. He looks like he's just really fast coming onto that back straightaway. Alessandrini is a little ragged for me at this point in the race, but the lap he just put together is really fast. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the fastest lap of the race. And Leighton's keeping the pressure on as well.
He's actually gone quicker earlier in the race by about 0.05 of a second, but it was a half a second better than Leighton's last lap around, this time through for the top driver. Ken Ausiel is going to run a 2:11.754 to a 2:11.704 to a 2:11.302.
Background, Andrew Kessel was off and goes into the tires for a moment, gets a little bit of damage on the driver's side of that car. Danny Gross and Kevin Zhu both go through. Watch this, coming off at the Casio Triangle, looks a little behind, gets heavy on the curbing on the exit, it's going to get popped up, starts to lose the rear end, and the car just will not turn. Whoa, Gross almost goes with him.
Oh.
Little clunk, he keeps going.
It's a big clunk for sure.
Yeah.
That's a Craigslist car where you only see the right side of it on the pictures. Up in front, 0.3 of a second, has now ballooned to 0.5, and Alessandrini putting pressure on Leighton again. Is this M4 fading at the halfway point?
Well, it's certainly coming up on that time that we would expect it. You could almost put a timer on it, and we're hitting that point just about now. So Leighton has done a perfect job so far to do the best that he's got with the machine that he has. But unfortunately, I think the longer this race goes, the scales of lap time are going to shift towards that Porsche. And now, this is what the phase of the race I was referencing early on. Alessandrini knew this phase was coming, and if he didn't get by, he's just going to have a really hard time getting around the 15 car. And that is when Halcyon will start to get away. And look what's happening right now.
Definitely is, as they separate again. Leaders in TCR, 0.3 between them. Elias Roman, Jack Christie. I think these two are pretty much dead even on pace. But last time by, Christie was 0.3 better, so let's not say this is over yet. I mean, they're very close. It's hard to pass, but anything can happen in the slightest mistake. We've seen Christie make it. Roman can do the same.
For sure, and Christie does have the benefit of a little bit of draft. The TCR cars have that into their favor as well. But look at Christie deep on the brakes, catches the apex, but is a little behind, and Roman's going to pull another car lane.
Watching Alessandrini, he's been really aggressive through 130R. That time doesn't track out quite so wide. It's going to set him up better for the Casio Triangle now. And this car just, watch it, as it gets airborne, Tom, it carries in the air for so much longer than the M4. It seems like with the M4, you get up on a curb and it slams right back down. The Cayman carries the tire up airborne for a couple seconds, and anytime the tire's not on the ground, it's not doing anything for you. It's not braking, accelerating, or turning.
And it certainly doesn't land very cleanly either. You tend to see that Porsche land with a couple of bounces. Leighton's deep on the brakes into one. It's an interesting perspective on the shape of that corner that I've never really seen before. It's kind of cool to see, and now, wow, Kessel, Leighton, it worked for him. He's closed back up to the back bumper of Halcyon.
I just want to watch their lines here. Leighton's a little bit behind Halcyon. He's going to stay farther left, but that's where it's going to hurt him there. You see Halcyon kind of square up the corner a little bit better, and he's apexing later, and that's actually what's carrying the speed to the next corner, because he's not wasting time between trying to pull the car to the right or the left to get set up for the next corner in the sequence.
Oh, that is all the way out to the grass for Leighton, but I do think that those lines were by design. You know, the BMW is a little more awkward, a little bit more cumbersome through those S's, so Leighton was basically just straightening them out, pointing and shooting them, and trying to play into the hands of the BMW strengths, which is just more straight lines. The Porsche, a little more nimble, is happy to sweep back and forth, and we saw Halcyon do that, and obviously that's where the section the Porsche is a little bit quicker. Now we're back to where the BMW seems to come back alive for a little bit of time until we get to the exit of Spoon, and you're going to watch both of these Porsches come off that corner like a bottle rocket.
Getting really dicey between these front three, and while they're having this scrap, so is the battle in TCR. 2/10 now, still close, and we're going to have to be real selective in which battles we watch, because we're going to miss something at the rate they're going here, Tom. They're continuing to scrap in both categories. I'm going to put my money on the GT4 one being closer for longer right now, at least with the potential for a pass to happen.
And look at how good Halcyon is off of Spoon down onto this back straightaway. I don't think Ken is the fastest car, but I do think Ken is the best in that corner, and that's one of the most critical spots to be quick, because this is the section that sets you up for a pass. Well, he grabs grass on the way in, a huge slide. He's going around.
No, the leader. Can he save it? What a
way.
save by Ken Ausiel. That was unbelievable. And Leighton goes to the lead. Alessandrini putting pressure on. I cannot believe he just saved that car.
I can't either. There's so little steering lock available to you in these race cars. Watch him just sets up a little bit too much, gets the tires in the grass, full opposite lock for hundreds of feet, and manages to not only save it, but keep it in front of Alex LaRose.
Back live here, Leighton and Alessandrini into turn 1. Now Leighton drives in hard into the first corner. 15 minutes to go, and now it's a scrap for the lead. The juggernaut that was out front all night long, Hausil, he has now been passed by 2 drivers that were running in his shadow for the entire night, and they're ready to come out into the light.
We're about to turn a new chapter on this race because all of a sudden, for the first time, Alessandrini is going to have pressure from behind. LaRose has been there for most of the race, but hasn't really tried anything, and you can guarantee when Hausil gets there, he's going to be trying to get around DJ. And with the pace of this BMW right now, I really think that Ken's going to get there and turn this thing into a very interesting race, because you can see right here by how easily DJ is keeping up. He is the quicker car, just got nowhere to go. Look how wide the BMW is.
I think if DJ Alessandrini gets the lead of this race, he's gone, and you can give him the trophy as soon as he makes that pass. But can he make that pass, and when will he be able to do it? Those are the big questions right now. Leighton through the right-hander. Look at the squirrely 61 as he comes up off the corner. This will be an passing opportunity. Slow down for Leighton. Too much corner cutting there, Tom. Just got a little bit aggressive. Probably on the corner entry here.
Oh, yeah, right across that quick curb, and unfortunately that's going to give you about a second timer on your, absolutely, grabbed too much of the green on the inside, and the 15 has to give up about a second of track time. That timer counts down. It feels like it takes forever, but now he's coming back on Alex LaRose, shows the nose on the way into Spoon, and this...
Oh, Hausil, he's out again. And everything's popping off here in the final 15 minutes. Everybody's going around.
I'm a little speechless. I did not expect this at all with the number of slip-ups. And all of a sudden, Alessandrini finds himself a very lonely third. Hausil makes the same mistake again, this time on the way into Spoon, grabs the grass again and goes for a big ride, keeps it off the wall again. But now, I think the battle is going to be for second between LaRose and Leighton. Look at Alessandrini. He's completely checked out. 10 to 15 car lengths, but he's still pushing.
He is definitely pushing. That was his opportunity to drive away, and he didn't make any passes, really. He just kind of had people drive out of the way or go off track. So he's gotten lucky with what's happened tonight, but LaRose now puts himself in second place. Can he go run down Alessandrini with 13 and a half minutes to go?
It's going to be a tall order, and I'm really heartbroken for both Ken and Leighton, but specifically for Thomas Leighton. He had been running such a textbook race in what I do think is the less preferred car for this track. He seems to be running some really, really unique but strong lines, and he's got something figured out. Unfortunately, just that inch wrong kind of sealed the deal for him. I'm not going to call it done yet, though, because obviously that race just shifted a number of times in the shape of one lap.
I think we've seen enough tonight to know that we can never call it over until it's actually over. So 13 minutes is a long time. All that chaos just happened in the last 3 minutes alone. So still a lot of racing left to do. Back in TCR, it's been decidedly less chaotic tonight. Roman and Christie have really been the show. And with other than that one lead change, they've pretty much run like this nose to tail for the entire 28 minutes we've run so far.
Well, lap traffic really isn't a main storyline for tonight's race, but they are coming up on one slower GT4 car. And it depends on how they catch them, when they catch them. The TCR cars are functionally slower, but they're turning faster lap times right now based on drivers. And that could make an interesting little last 10-minute introduction to this TCR battle. Look at Roman, big rotation coming into turn 2. He gets to the apex a little too early, and I think Chrissy's going to pull a car length or 2 on the way out.
So keeping an eye on the race lead in GT4. It's 1.1 seconds now. We'll take you there if it gets close. Closest battle on the racetrack right now is the one that you're watching between Chrissy in the 16 and the 99 of Elias Roman. Roman apexes early. Both of them did, actually. Kind of double apex that right-hander. That was a line I don't think I've seen anybody take tonight.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of those things that you have to start to adjust to that. The longer the race goes, and I think Elias Roman's experience in the TCR car is going to start to shift his hand into his favor for this race, because he knows to do things like that. He squares up the corner and gets a better run, and that functionally takes the wear off the front tires on the exit of the corner where it has to do the most work. So he goes in a little quicker, lets the car rotate in the middle of the corner, and then accelerates off in a straighter line. That is part of the reason I think that 99 is still so strong, but this is the section, something that Chrissy's doing is just working for him through those couple of corners in the middle of the lap, and he keeps closing back up to the 99 lap after lap.
Elias Roman was quicker last time around, but by 0.2 of a second. We'll keep our eyes on that battle as it continues. So after a few minutes of breathtaking moments, we now finally have a chance to exhale for a moment and kind of run everybody down to where we are. DJ Alessandrini in the 61 has struggled to make up track position tonight. Started in third and sat there for the first 25 minutes of this race. And then who's following Ken Ausiel primarily, who has now dropped to 5th after a couple mistakes. One in 130R and one, I believe, entering, I believe they call that, I don't know what they call
Spoon.
that. That is Spoon over there, yes. So entered in Spoon and got the car off track, ended up sort of looping the car, now back in 5th place. Thomas Layton, who was kind of the meat in the sandwich all night, got a slowdown after being gifted the lead after that first incident that Ausiel had. He runs in 3rd now behind Alex LaRose, who is closing in on Alessandrini, was 2/10 faster last time by.
Yeah, I was going to say, as we watched Alessandrini go through the S's, especially now that he doesn't have Layton in front of him, he does look uncomfortable. Number of kind of multiple stabs in the brakes. He got a little behind at one point. That car just doesn't look quite so happy. And LaRose has closed up a number of tenths, maybe 3 or 4 tenths so far this lap. If he can do that every single time, he's going to get to the bumper of the 61, and Alessandrini's got to figure that car out, especially in the S's.
Check out a couple more drivers we haven't mentioned a whole lot tonight. There's Francois Brou in the number 69. Looks like that car is pretty clean and tidy, hasn't had any dramas. Started 8th, running in 9th, so not really the night Francois wanted. But again, good to see him out here. Rich DeMarco had a huge slide earlier in the night. He gathered it back up and continues in that carbon number 12 M4. Chad Griffith in the 22 has mostly stayed out of trouble and carries on in 11th place. And Andrew Chow runs in 12th with Chris Spiller on the 980 with some struggles tonight, but runs in 13th place. David Thompson out, so is Scott Merker. Both those cars out with crash damage.
Back in TCR, it looks like Peter Lausen has started to pull away from Will Robbins as well. And they're pretty much the last 4, or the only 4, I think, running in TCR at this point. With Williman is dropped significantly off, so he's still circulating as well.
Lausen in that 56, 7.5 seconds behind, running a very lonely 3rd for the time being. LaRose is really closing on Alessandrini. Half a second is the gap now. It's down to about 5 car lengths with under 9 minutes to go. It's going to be racy again. And don't count out the 15, because as soon as those front 2 start racing, it's going to drag in that Turner BMW very quickly.
You're absolutely right, and I think that Layton's done his homework on figuring out how to make that BMW work. Just watching his lines, they're not traditional lines, and they're not something that I would have come up with on my own. So he's looking pretty good and recovering from that slowdown well enough. But LaRose, I give him credit for this, and I even said it to him in person, and he was scratching his head a little bit. I don't think he thinks of himself as this, but he has such strong late race pace in that 26 car across the season. He's showing it once again, running down to the championship leader and one of the strongest contenders that we see anywhere on iRacing.
Oh, look at Ken Ausiel, really aggressive on the back of Lapras now, putting the pressure on. And Ausiel is probably feeling desperate at this time. I mean, he lost the lead because of his own mistakes twice. So I think he's probably feeling frustrated with himself and really feels the need to push to get some of these spots back. Yeah,
kind of caution to the wind at this point. If you're running 5th, as far as when he was leading the race, this feels like a loss already. So he just wants to pick up every position that he can. Unfortunately, he's got one of those big hipped BMWs in front of him that's really tough to get around, and I think he's going to have to get a run out of Spoon. We'll take a ride with him through here and just watch how much he's going to be able to pull on exit if he nails the entry here. One of the toughest corners in motorsports, but gets on throttle so early.
That car just rotates so well, just got right back on throttle, and it just turns and goes.
And look at him, just got a nice draft on the fact that BMW. That is his strongest point.
And in the draft, see the speeds climb into the high 140s, a touch on the brakes, and into 130R. Watch 6 car turn in. A little bit of understeer there for Ausiel. He loses a touch of ground. He should be able to gain it back in the braking zone. Look at him close here in the Casio triangle.
More confident on the curbs as well, gets up to the bumper, but then there's nowhere to go, and that's the biggest problem when you're a Porsche stuck behind a BMW.
For the lead.
Happens all over the place.
Now look at LaRose, he's done it. Gets by DJ Alessandrini.
Was it a cut?
Oh man, I don't know. We'll have to find out. Let's go back and look. I think it had to be here, Tom. Let's have a look.
Yeah, that run was a little too extreme. Alessandrini crosses back over. Right here is the question I have. He did cross 4 on the curb. No, he gets the big push. That's what Kessel did as well. Kessel got out of the wall. Alessandrini catches it early, but the front tire is just not happy coming off the Casio triangle and onto the front straightaway. We have, what is this, the 4th new leader of the race?
They're still trading positions, and Ausiel is all over Lapras for 4th. And this scrap is still going on. Meanwhile, 2 tenths between the TCR leaders, but this is a great battle for position. Through the S's side by side.
And he just stabs the throttle, gets the inside on the final S, and easily now the Cayman pulls ahead. That was a power move from Ken Ausiel around the outside of the final run of the S's, and now Chris Lapras finds himself back to 5th once again.
That was a great fight for position there. Whoa, he makes another mistake. and through goes the 6 car back to the inside lane. They're going to drag race up to the next corner, and he's past him and going to go defensive. It's mistake on top of mistake on top of mistake for Hausiel. This is uncharacteristic. Oh, there's some contact there, some frustration boiling over for sure.
Yeah, perhaps Lapras went straight to the apex. Hausiel squared it up and got a good run, but then just basically ran straight into the back of the BMW. And that is once again the problem that Hausiel had. So now he's got to get back to work, getting back to the back bumper. But LaRose leading over Alessandrini. Basically all the top 4 have led at some point, and LaRose probably didn't expect to find himself there quite in that fashion, but hoped for it the entire time, and now he's started to pull away, because I do truly think that 26 car is the quickest on the track right now.
Well, we're going to see if Alessandrini can stretch his talents to close back in on that 26 car. 5 minutes to go. It'll be about 3 laps to go this time through, so 3 more times through the harder parts of this racetrack. And for LaRose, that's going to feel like the longest 3 laps of his career so far. Has he won a race this season yet, or has it all been DJ and Ken so far?
Yeah, it's been all DJ, Ken, and then Ryan Maloney won one early on this season at Donington. But it looks like LaRose was a little deep into the Casio Triangle that time through. Didn't get the best run onto the straightaway, and you can guarantee also that Thomas Layton was not happy to see that exchange happened so easily between those 2 drivers. He wanted them to race so he could get back up there.
Well, I can tell you who's racing right now is Lapras and Hausiel still going at it for position. Hausiel got the pass done and then immediately went to the next corner, overdrove, and lost that position. Look at Lapras just tugging that wheel to the right and just forcing it to turn. It doesn't want to. You can see the tires sliding.
Yeah, hanging the back end out, trying to get the car pivoted for 2, and gets it done. Hausiel is really comfortable using all of the track and more, but unfortunately it's done and dirty a couple of times on entries. He's snagging the grass. And this is where he made that power move last time through. Not able to get it done this time, so he's going to tuck in again to finish the S's. Alessandrini's found a little bit more pace with the buffer of LaRose to show him the way.
I love watching these cars get airborne like that. It's so dynamic and fun to watch. But I'm not sure that it's necessarily faster. They're just trying to exploit every little bit of corner apex that they can. This has been a fantastic race, and I think that's been kind of par for the course for this season of the DC Region SCCA Virtual Racing League. Far from over, though. 3.5 minutes is a whole lot of time for the lead and for 4th, where Lapras and Hausiel continue to battle. Jack Chrissy has stayed right on Elias Roman, but they have not switched positions in the last 15 minutes or so we're going to stay on the GT4 battles. Comes Hausiel and has a look, but not close enough to do anything about it.
So he's taking a little bit easier now after that hat trick of mistakes, but this is where he gets that strong run. Alessandrini's got a good draft. He's going to come up to the back bumper of LaRose and shows a headlight in the mirror.
Oh, watch the grass on the right. LaRose almost did what Hausiel did a couple laps ago. And it seems like these drivers are just pushing that entry as far right as they can. Here comes DJ up the inside, late on the brakes into the Casio Triangle. Side by side for the lead through the chicane. Door to door, they leave each other plenty of room. Now it's going to be a drag race down the front stretch.
This is what Layton wants to see. He's licking his chops, waiting for these 2 to do this for one more whole lap, but they're door to door across the start-finish line. LaRose would have won it if it was not for 2 more laps to go. So we got 2 more tours of Suzuka. Alessandrini side drafts a little bit, gets the inside for turn 1.
Oh, he's going to cross over the nose. They make contact. They touch. They run wide. Here comes Layton from 3rd. He's right now in the bumper of LaRose as they head through turn number 2. And now it's an all-out scrap for the lead at Suzuka. DJ Alessandrini finally gets through with an aggressive slide across LaRose.
And it took him 4 corners to make it happen, plus a long straight. But now the 61 has a little bit of clear track, and unfortunately the 26 is a mirrorful at this point. Layton is back in this one once again, and Alessandrini's looking a little quicker. Maybe he learned something following LaRose.
Yeah, I think LaRose kind of got roughed up there a little bit. Here comes Hausiel having a look at Lapras again. And that was DJ knowing that if he didn't make that clearing pass there, he probably wasn't going to get another clear shot without a mistake from LaRose. And now look at this side by side for 4th.
They're going to go side by side through one of the fastest sections of the track into one of the trickiest, most single file sections. And Hausiel tries the over-under, goes into the bumper of Lapras once again. That Lapras machine is going to be covered in chrome blue by the end of this race. And Hausiel goes for a big slide, but loses distance once again.
Let me tell you something, that BMW is like running into a school bus. It just doesn't move. Every time Hausiel's laid a bumper on it, doesn't flinch. And meanwhile, Ken's got his hands full trying to keep the car from crashing. Here he comes again.
Look at the 6, flicks the back end out on power, trying to get the power down out of the hairpin. Loses a little bit of momentum, and this is the closest Ken Hausiel has been coming into Spoon. That car shines. Does he show the nose? Whoa, hunting big on the brakes, gets on them early.
That was a run that he had building, couldn't really complete the pass there. Up front, 0.2 of a second between each of the front 3 runners here. 50 seconds to go. Next time by will be white flag and the final lap here from Suzuka.
You certainly can't call this one done really for either class, but in GT4 they've been putting on a show and a half. Alessandrini gets a good run through 130R, gets him a buffer, and LaRose has a ton of pressure from Leighton. Those are the top 3, nice and clean, single file. This is a moment of calm in what I think is about to be a storm.
Kevin Zhu has gone around for loop. He'll get back, rolling into the Casio Triangle. Lapras, bit sideways, he's got Hausiel right there behind him. Chris Spiller has had an incident right in front of the TCR leaders, but they remain half a second apart.
Lapras hunting back and forth, trying to break the draft, finally settles into the outside line, which is the preferred way into turns 1 and 2. Hausiel with the draft sucks up to the bumper, and they've lost a ton of ground. Look at that, a couple of corners between them and the leaders. As the leaders now weave their way into those increasing radius S's. It's bigger and bigger each one. Hausiel, so much pressure on the back of that BMW.
Both battles in view right now. The front 3 and then the 4th and 5th car still going at it. Look at him slipping and sliding all over the racetrack. Hausiel wants by, and he can't figure out how to get by this monolith of a BMW, this aircraft carrier with the blue badge on it. Here he comes up the inside. Oh, he gets squeezed. They touch.
Ooh, Dapper saw him coming and adjusted his line, tried to squeeze him, and I don't know, that's a little bit on the line for me, but it works for him. He holds the position, and this worked for him last time too. Hausiel knows the over-under is going to be tricky to pull off, but he's trying it again.
Oh.
Big curb hop, and he gets it this time, deep on the brakes. The BMW holds the outside.
But he overdrove it. Here comes Hausiel now with another run. He's going to throttle that thing up. Look at the size difference between these 2 cars racing to the left-hander.
BMW straight to the apex is going to have a hard time holding this one because it does not put power down very well. Around the outside, the 23 goes, and now he gets the inside for the run up to Spoon. And I think the 23 with a shorter distance might just be able to close the door before they get to the brakes. But look at the strength of that BMW. It's basically a straightaway through here, and he holds the nose in there.
Big slide. Now the 6 car is going to dive on the brakes. He'll have the left-hander. They're going to touch again. Doors slamming, mirrors bumping as they head through the dual left-handers. Now still side by side. Unbelievable racing in the DC Region Virtual Racing League. There's a slide for the 6, and the 23 clears.
Man, they were pixels apart coming off of that corner. Back up for the lead. Alessandrini is really strong through 130R, buys himself a couple of car lengths. This is the last passing opportunity unless a mistake happens, and nothing doing for Leighton behind.
It didn't come easy, but he's going to finally get it done as he sweeps on through the final corner. If he can hang on here, he'll get it done. Alessandrini from 3rd to 1st in a wild one here at Suzuka. He wins. LaRose a very close 2nd, Leighton 3rd, and for 4th, Hausiel and Lapras. Their epic battle comes to a close. Give the 23 4th and give the 6 car 5th. In TCR, for the lead, here comes Chrissy with a run.
Yeah, we forgot about him for just a second because of how exciting the top of GT4 was, but they still got a whole half a lap to go, and that's a long way with these cars. Chrissy, did he save any tire? Does he have anything left in that Audi, or does Elias Roman masterfully control another one of these races?
Roman has got out front with a mistake from Chrissy in turn 2 25 minutes ago, and Chrissy has not been able to respond. He's going to have one last opportunity, maybe 2 here. Bit of a bobble here through the left-handers. Now throttle back up. He was late to the throttle here, Tom. Roman pushes wide, but he's going to carry pretty good speed.
Yeah, it was late, maybe a little bit later, but a little bit cleaner on exit as well. And I saw a couple of flashes extra of brake lights. It looks like Roman's car is not happy. Look at the draft. This is tough to pull off at 130. Roman parks it in the middle of the track, now shuts the door on entry. Chrissy has to back out of it.
Did he drive in too hard, though? He's going to run wide on corner exit. No, he keeps it tidy. Great drive for Elias Roman. Now only 2 corners left.
And I think these two have had contact at some point. Look, a headlight out in the number 16 car, but Roman backs the car up for the Casio Triangle and cleanly gets a run towards that start-finish line.
He fought hard for it. Elias Roman comes on through. Another victory for the 99. Hard fought, well won. Jack Chrissy comes home in second with a damaged headlight, and it'll be one trophy, a little less shiny today, but man, he fought hard for that. Peter Lausen will come across the line in 3rd. Will Robbins will bring it home in 4th, and John Williman in 5th. Chris Spiller still out there on the racetrack. What a race that was, Tom.
That might go to the top for me this season. That was absolutely spectacular. I don't care how many cars were on track. That was some of the best racing. And Alessandrini, I think when we talked to him, he might be a little surprised to have that one next to his name. All 4 of those top 4 led at some point. Alex LaRose barely missing out. Thomas Leighton, maybe driver of the race for me. I think he was working with something a little tougher to work with and had a fantastic job at it. Would have had it won if it wasn't for that extra course cut. And then Ken Hausiel, heartbreak. 3 3 times in a row in the course of about 2 laps to bring it home fourth just in front of Chris Lapras, but hard earned there at the end.
And Gross and Kessel, they had their own good fight. Gross was able to come across the line about 5 seconds ahead of Kessel, so that did fizzle towards the end of the race. Here's a look at Griffith and Andrew Chow kind of bringing up towards the rear of the GT4 field, and Elias Roman and Jack Chrissy. Very tight battle for the entire race, Tom, but Elias comes home with it. I think he had the faster car and was probably a little bit better tonight, but Chrissy was right there ready to pounce if he made any mistake, but Elias did not.
Well, the momentum Chrissy has on the last half of this season, he's pole twice in a row. He's keeping it within a half a second to the line over 40 minutes race distance to Elias Roman, so Roman cannot slip up at this point because Chrissy is in a groove.
And a couple drivers that did not start, Ryan Maloney, Don Manning. We'll be back in just a moment. You're not going to want to miss these interviews. We'll talk to our race winners and more here in just a moment. Hang tight, we'll be right back. Back live here on SimTV for the post-race interviews for the DC Region SCCA Virtual Racing League, here with Elias Roman, the winner in the TCR category. Holy cow, that was a heck of a race. Battling with Jack Chrissy, you were following him for the first half of the race. He makes one mistake, you pounce past him, and then you're just holding him in the mirror for the rest of the event. But it was never more than a half a second. Take us through that epic battle, getting by Chrissy and then hanging on with him pounding up the inside and in your mirrors.
Well, since we are in Japan, konnichiwa, Kyle Senpai. It's ironic because yesterday in the FCP Euro, I made mistakes and people got by. And it's kind of ironic that I kind of capitalized on Jack mistakes when he kind of slid wide, made a bobble, and I was actually out of control as well. And I don't know how I made it through on the inside while still out of control, but amazing driving by both of us. And then, Jack, hats off to Jack. He definitely had winning pace today. He was on my bumper the entire time, and I felt like I wasn't breathing the last 10 minutes because he was definitely faster than me and Spoon, but I was able to hold it off.
It was really fun watching that last lap battle. And how close do you have to be? I mean, we saw you guys run so close nose to tail, and in GT4 it seems like the guys, whenever they're within 2 or 3 tenths, they just go for it and make the dive. Why is that something you can't do in the TCR car?
I think because of the nature of the car, it kind of really only likes one line through most of the corners, only because of the way it understeers on exit. It's kind of really a one line takes all kind of approach. There are some corners throughout the series that you could definitely take it too wide. But you kind of have to be on the quarter panel to kind of make a move, and you also kind of have to have trust in the other guy to have the awareness that you're right there and you're about to make a move. So
super, super awesome racing, Elias. Congratulations on grabbing another victory. Hard fought, well won. We'll see you next week at Monza. That'll be a fun one.
Arigato, Kyle. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thanks, Elias. Moving on now. Let's see if we can get Jack Chrissy again. Hey, Jack, you got a copy? Hey, I got you. Hey, Jack, this was a super fun race to watch, but you were out front for the first little bit of the race. You actually won the pole over Elias Roman, but one little mistake in turn number 2, Elias gets by you, then you're forced to chase him for the rest of the race. Tell us about that battle and trying to get back by Elias Roman.
That crazy last couple or first couple laps. I was trying to. I think I had pretty much a game plan of shifting and slowly shifting my brake bias as the race went on. I think my setup was a little bit different than Elias's. I kind of relied more on rake and brake bias to kind of maintain my tires throughout the race. So I think I tried adjusting the brake bias a little too rearward too early in the race, and going into turn 1, I got the back end loose. I think 2 laps in a row, and that's all Elias needed. Just slip up the inside and get by, and all I could do from there was just sit behind him, and I think we were too close on pace this race to for me really to ever get a good run on him. I think the only chance I actually had was going into 130R in the last lap. So that was the closest I had. Other than that, I was sitting there just praying he would make a mistake and I could slip up the inside, but never came. So amazing race.
A really fun race this week. We head to Monza next week. A lot of straightaways, very point and shoot. How do you think that race is going to go? And it's a track that doesn't seem to really suit these cars. So what's the plan for that one?
It's going to be a pack battle. So I'm just expecting there at least to be a train of like 3 or 4 cars going down the whole time. The tow in the cars are pretty good. So if you're able to get a good tow off of T1 and or out of the last corner or anything else on any other straights, they're all long, you can get a good chance to go for the pass. But I think as Elias told me earlier this week, is keep your nose clean. Don't get damaged. The minute you get damaged, your race is over. Car doesn't have any speed. So just keep your nose clean.
Well done, Jack. Congratulations on a second place. We'll see you next week at Monza.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jack. Move on now to our third place finisher in GT4. It was Tom Layton in the number 15. And in that 15 car, you have 1 lap led, Tom, and it came after the mistake by race leader Ken Hausiel in 130R. And then the next half of that lap, you made a mistake, cut the course, and let Alessandrini go by. So a wild stage there with about 15 or 20 minutes to go. Take us through your battle there and the scraps that you guys had at the front between your BMW and their Caymans.
Oh, man, was it really only 1 lap? It felt like at least 3 or 4. That's disappointing. But, yeah, I knew that, like, at the start, lap 1, turn 1, that the BMW has a lot more grip going for it into that turn. So when we all went 3 wide, DJ and Alex kind of tangled themselves up a little bit, and I just sent it around and managed to get by everybody. So then it was just me behind Ken for a while. There was just nowhere for me to pass him, even though I was catching him on the straights big time, but he'd pull away in the corners, of course, and eventually got a little bit lucky with him spinning out. Somehow he caught it, but then he had another spin later on. And yeah, I had the track cut penalty at Degner. That was too bad. It just turned in too early. And, after that, I was basically just hoping that DJ and Alex would kind of tangle each other up a little bit, slow each other down, but they kept their pace up pretty well. And yeah, I'm satisfied with the podium.
Tom, a great race for you today. Good luck to you next week at Monza. That's going to be a really interesting event for sure, especially with these GT4 and TCR cars. So good luck to you in Italy next week.
All right,
we'll see you there. All right, we'll see you next week, as I was going to say. Thanks, Tom, for your time. Appreciate it. All right, moving on now to Alex LaRose, who came home in second place, 0.3 short of getting to DJ Alessandrini. Alex, take us through your battle up at the front. It seemed like you were chasing the battle most of the night, and then the final couple moments, there you are running DJ Alessandrini's bumper. Take us through the final moments.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how I found myself chasing DJ, but I think I was driving a little too aggressive at the start, making some mistakes, and kept falling back from the pack. And during that process, just ended up wearing my tires more than I really wanted to. But it seemed like everyone else's pace kind of fell off equal to mine, so I just kept pushing and just tried not to make mistakes, and I guess it worked out.
Alex, congratulations on a second. Monza next week. Your thoughts on that racetrack? A lot of straights and not a whole lot of speed-sustained corners. So how's that race going to go for you, do you think?
I've never raced there, so that's news to me. I guess got some learning to do.
All right, Alex. Good luck to you next week. We'll see you there. And we're going to move on now to DJ Alessandrini, who was the race winner in this one. It was not an easy one tonight. Started in third and led only 6 laps of the 19 that we completed, DJ. That was a wild one. What'd you see out your windshield?
That was I saw a bunch of cars that were faster than me, and somehow I ended up winning that race. not gonna lie, I threw out a fist pump at the end of that race. I was pretty pumped to win that thing tonight. I struggled so hard on this track. Like, consistency is so tough, as you saw, with just people throwing mistakes. I feel like I made one mistake tonight, and it didn't matter because I made up for it. But I looked at my mirror at the way worst time, leaving that last chicane, and once you dip some tires in the grass, it's you're lucky just to keep the car not bent up.
So we watched Thomas Layton in that number 15 BMW sort of be a force to be reckoned with a little bit. I thought that the BMW was going to fire off a lot better than it did, and it seemed like it got better as the race went on until the halfway point, and then it kind of died as normal. But why didn't it shoot out of the gate as fast as we typically see it? What about this racetrack makes that M4 come in a little slower than normal?
Oh, I mean, Layton passed 2 cars to take away second place right off the bat. So I mean, the BMW was firing very quickly, and if Ken wasn't in the way, I think he would have been driving away from me. And I had the benefit of the double draft of cars in front of me, so I was able to just kind of sit back there and protect tires a little bit, maybe pick up some scraps if there was any mistakes. But I mean, Layton came out firing right away, and he was quick. It's just he was quick in ways immediately after where Ken was quick, so he couldn't quite get a move in on Ken. And yeah, I mean, the story of tonight was mistake mitigation, and it's Ken was the fastest, Alex was the second fastest, I think Layton was the third fastest, and somehow I won.
DJ, next week we take on Monza, totally different racetrack than what we've been running lately. How does that race differently, and do you think we're going to see more of a pack style race, or do you think it'll look pretty normal?
I think Monza's enough of a draft track where even the GT4s, you'll see some pack type of racing. Some what's your favorite term here? Co-opetition.
Co-opetition. There you go.
Yeah, co-opetition. There we go. I watch the streams. Yeah, I think you'll see some working together, and I'm curious. I haven't done a lot of laps at Monza, just like everyone else. I mean, we know Alex LaRose is going to be fast. For somebody who's new at iRacing, like that kid's got it, man. He's so fast. Alex is so impressive. So hopefully I can match his quali times and then bully him a little bit on the racetrack.
DJ, congratulations. A well-earned victory, even though it kind of came in a non-traditional way. We'll see you at Monza next week and see if you can get another one.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, that's going to wrap up the interviews here tonight, Tom. Wow, that was a good one. That's about all I got to say about that. I mean, everyone saw it, how good that race was all throughout the field. Mostly focused at the front, though, especially in TCR, that two-car tango with Elias Roman and Jack Christie. They fought hard all day long. Only one lead change, but intense for the entire night. And then in GT4, you could just put them all in a coffee can and shake them around and see which one comes out first. I mean, that was a phenomenal battle between those front 5.
Yeah, what I just heard through those interviews is some question marks going into next week, and this is going to be the 8th of 9 rounds for the DCR SCCA Virtual Racing League. Then we go home to the home track for a 1.2-hour race. So this is also our final sprint. It's only going to be a 40-minute race at Monza. We've kind of been sailing in international waters here and there across the oceans, and this is our final race doing that. But I love the point that I just lost it. Chrissy made about damage in pack racing. I think the consequences may be looking different next week at Monza, but probably just as high, and that's going to make it fun to watch.
A lot of fun. Make sure that you join us here on SimTV next Wednesday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central to join us for our penultimate round of the season here for the DC Region Virtual Racing League. Again, my name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Tom O'Gorman. You'll see us again tomorrow night for Scars Ferrari. You'll see me tomorrow night, at least, for Scars Ferrari Challenge. That will be at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week from Monza in Italy.